Hello, Tar Heel Nation. This is Gil Elhart. Welcome to the UNC Hoops Talk podcast. Thanks for checking out this video or podcast on your favorite streaming app. And here we are. We're going to talk about things as they are here in early January. UNC basketball coming off of its 96-83 loss to Georgia Tech at the Dean Smith Center. This was a huge letdown after 879 wins for Roy Williams, tying him with his mentor Dean Smith in the previous contest against Yale in late December. So it looked like things were starting to maybe stabilize for UNC. We had Jeremiah Francis and Anthony Harris starting to step in and find minutes, valuable minutes, and give this team an edge, give this team some energy that it needed. And late in the second half against Yale, unfortunately, Anthony Harris goes down. The news comes out later in the week that it is in fact an ACL to his other knee, not the one he injured in high school, and he will be out for the rest of the season, having surgery at some point this past week. Losing Anthony Harris for the season is a tough blow for this year's team, but you feel terrible for Anthony. He'd worked so hard to come back, to earn minutes on this team, to earn the respect of his teammates, and really win all of us in Tar Heel Nation over with how hard he had played the game. You hate that for him, but you know he'll be back. You know he's going to work so hard to come back, and he'll be stronger than ever next season. So this was a huge blow to the team. You could tell that they were a little bit struck by that. In the closing minutes against Yale, they managed to seal the deal barely. They didn't look great there in the final minutes, but they managed to pull out the win. And finally, here we are coming off of a 2-game winning streak after some tough defeats in December. And then we are essentially, it feels like we should be opening conference play, but we're getting into the slate of conference play, 18 in a row, and it starts with a home game against Georgia Tech. Not a great Georgia Tech team, I might add. I think they have a good starting five, but they were not ranked, of course, and they also had a losing record coming into the Dean Dome. And they beat us 96-83 by 13, and that was after we were down early in the first half, 30-6. So it was just an abysmal start to the game. We had no offensive answers early, and then all of a sudden it seemed like Garrison Brooks seemed to take off his jersey and open up a Superman Bryce Johnson-esque on the anniversary of the night that Bryce Johnson scored 39 and I think 17 rebounds, something like that, in Tallahassee. Anyway, Garrison Brooks stepped up, did everything he could, tried to put the team on his back, but in the end, not quite enough weapons for UNC, and ultimately the defense let us down, and so we let one get away, one that we really, really needed to, given how things are going with Cole Anthony out for at least a couple more weeks. It seems like we needed to start to accrue some wins against teams that were beatable. Here we are at home, and we should beat Georgia Tech, I think all of us feel, and we let that one get away. And the effort was the huge question mark and the huge disappointment. I've been following Carolina basketball since the mid-late 80s, and it was the worst 13 minutes or so of basketball I've ever seen from the men's program. And the effort was the biggest disappointment. You can't necessarily control if the ball goes in or not. It looked like for the most part we were getting decent looks, but the defensive effort, we can always put our heart and our hustle into the defense, and so that was a huge letdown to see the team letting Georgia Tech push them around on the interior, getting easy layups, easy dunks, and ultimately it was too much to overcome in the end, even though we made a valiant effort in trying to come back, getting it down to 9 in the second half at one point. But we just never could quite get over that hump. When we needed a stop, we couldn't get it. When we needed a bucket desperately, we failed to do so in those crunch moments. So where does this team go from here? We're 1-2 in the ACC. We're 8-6 overall. First off, it really shouldn't be a surprise to a lot of us where this team currently sits, given the fact that our best player, highest recruit in a good while, Cole Anthony, goes down with a knee injury. We've got Sterling Manley out for the season, and now Anthony Harris out for the season. So I was just listening to Roy Williams live just a few moments ago, and that's, as he was talking about, 3 of the team's top 7 players have been missing time, not to mention Armando Bacot has been struggling. He hurts the ankle, and ever since then has not really looked right. Plus, Andrew Platek has missed the last 2 games, also with an ankle injury. Leaky Black, something going on there with his foot and or ankle, and he just hasn't quite seemed like he's got the pop in his jump and in his athleticism. He just doesn't seem like he's got that full effort and energy, and so I think that he's facing something. So just with all the injuries that this team has been facing, it really shouldn't come as a surprise when we look at it, and just getting his feet wet, really thrust into the starting role essentially with the injury of Cole Anthony. He's trying to play a more prominent role. I think he's learning. I think he's doing a good job. And I think that perhaps when Cole Anthony comes back, the two of them maybe play alongside each other a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how this team starts to redevelop its identity when they get Cole back. In the meantime, they have to figure out their identity with the players that they have. And I was really, really hoping going into the Georgia Tech game that this team was going to rally around its defensive effort. Just think if that team had showed up ready to play, strapped them on, laced them up, and was just going to be right up in everybody's grill on Georgia Tech for that first 10 minutes, how that would have changed. We might have been looking at a start very similar to the away game at Virginia, where it's hardly any points on the board, but that's okay. At least we're only, within 5 or something like that after missing as many shots as we did, starting out 0-15 from field goals. And our first 4 points were free throws until we finally made a bucket with Garrison Brooks. So the injuries have been a major problem, not an excuse, but it's led to this crisis of identity and trying to figure out who we are. I would love for this team to say, all right, we need to step up. We need to play killer defense, because in following statistically, we were holding teams under 50% field goal percentage throughout the season until Georgia Tech. They shot above 50% in both halves. I'm not looking at the stats right here in front of me, but they finished the game well above 50%, and they basically got whatever they wanted whenever they wanted it. And that was what was the killer in that game, was they could get a possession and score an easy basket in the crunch moments when we finally had closed the gap. So I'd love to see this team get into the defensive mindset, buy in 100%, and that's how they're going to need to win games with Cole Anthony out, because right now, and maybe throughout the rest of the season, this is just not a great offensive team. I still think that there's potential for guys to warm up as they build confidence. It's been a major struggle so far this season with confidence and guys just passing up shots. I saw an interesting tweet of a possession in the Georgia Tech game where it just seemed like guys were just passing up shots, just like they're all passing it around until finally the shot clock's about to expire and Jeremiah Francis hoists one up. He actually made it. And that's the kind of possessions we're getting used to seeing, not guys wanting to step up and take shots like we had last year with Cam Johnson and with Kobe White, but we got guys that are tentative. So we need to play through Brooks and Baycott if he can seem to figure things out inside, go inside out, see if we can get some open shots, and really, really man up and play hardcore defense. That's how I think we're going to get through this stretch. And we have winnable games, which is most likely going to be the bottom of the league here coming up by the time this podcast is published. So that's Wednesday, January 8th at 7 p.m. against Pitt. A must-win game. You hate to say that here in January, but we need wins at this point if we want to have any chance of making the NCAA tournament. Then we turn around on Saturday, 4:30 p.m., also in Chapel Hill against Clemson. People are starting to worry, and I'm hearing the murmurs about the streak. We should care nothing about the streak, personally, and just take it one game at a time. I know that's a sports cliche, but that should be this team's mantra. And by the team, I mean all of us in the family, coaches, players, and fans. Let's take it one game at a time. Let's focus on Pitt, getting the win there, grind it out as much as we have. I don't care how it looks. Let's get the win, and let's just take it one game at a time, playing hard defense. And I expect the team to show up much differently after the way they came out against Georgia Tech in the last game. I imagine the coaches are going to be focused, getting the team to focus. And here's my little hot take for this podcast too, is that, Roy Williams came out in his post game and apologized to Tar Heel Nation, apologized to previous players, apologized to people who care about the basketball program. And I think that was the right move, because it is not just on the players, it is on the coaches too. And I know there's been people commenting, well, he's not playing, it's the players who are playing, it's on them. I agree, it's definitely on the players. You can't coach effort, and the display of effort was really just unacceptable. And at the same time, The coaches need to get the players ready mentally and physically. That's their role. And I feel like there was something missing there. And so that is on the coaches to make sure that the players are ready to play. So that's my little hot take on this. Every single member of the Carolina basketball program is responsible for that result and for the upcoming results. So hopefully they're all doing their job. I know they are. I was listening to Roy Williams live, and he was talking about the practice that he had, the film they've been watching. So they're getting ready, and I think we're going to see a much different performance against Pitt and against Clemson, and I believe that we're going to go 2-0 in those two games at home to get us back on track. That'll take us to 3-2 in the ACC, so that's my take there on that. So that's the outlook here in the short term. Long term, I saw a stat, the BPI gives us a 4% chance of making the NCAA tournament. There is a high chance at this point that Carolina is looking at an NIT season, which would not be the end of the world. Potentially you see Cole Anthony returning to New York. We make a deep run in the NIT. However, NCAA is not out of the question. Although BPI says 4% chance, there's just not any dominant teams in college basketball right now. And of course, UNC plays in the ACC. The ACC is a little down this year as well. There's a lot of talk about possibly only being 5 teams or 5 bids out of the league for the NCAA tournament. But nonetheless, we can still accrue quality wins that look good on our resume, and we can build up our resume to get into the tournament. If we can get to 500 in the league in a tough conference, then that might be enough with 1 or 2 wins in the ACC tournament. So perhaps Cole Anthony returns, things start to click, things start to gel, the team steps it up defensively, figures out their identity because they know who the parts are that are going to be playing now. We know there's a couple guys that are just not going to be back this season. Some of the guys are stepping into their roles and filling those roles that they can fill, because every player on that team has something they can offer. It might not be the level that we're used to seeing, some of the talent that we're used to seeing, but they can fill the role, come in for 5 minutes, for example, and do what they do well, and then we just cycle through. So there is potential for this team still to make it into the NCAA. Don't give up hope, but also be real and understand that the ceiling of this team might be a little bit lower than the roof that we're used to hoping this team can reach up to. So they got Pittsburgh Wednesday night, got Clemson at home, and then we go on the road the following Saturday, so a full week until the next game, and then we're at Pitt and then at Virginia Tech on the Wednesday following that. So 2 more games at home, back-to-back, and then 2 games on the road. If we can come out of those with a positive record, then that's looking good for us to reach that 500 record, or perhaps even better in the ACC for this season. So NIT, possibility, but NCAA tournament, also a possibility. So I'm going to look at that parallel universe right now for those of you that have been grim and saying this team has no chance, maybe not even a chance of having a winning record, which is what's required to get into NIT. Here's a parallel universe. UNC builds confidence getting some wins here in the first half of their ACC slate, where they have more winnable games. Cole Anthony returns, he steps into his power and he's playing at his best, and other guys build confidence on the team. Garrison Brooks is a nightly double-double machine, and we've got Brandon Robinson playing his role to the best of his ability, really strong defensively, making shots from the wing and just streaking and playing good games. And we get into the NCAA tournament, perhaps we're a 10 seed or something like that, and we're a team that no one wants to see because we finish the season hot, we make a good run in the ACC tournament, and perhaps we get 1 or 2 wins in the NCAA tournament this season. That's still in play, and so that's the universe I'm going to hope for, I'm going to root for, I'm going to be watching the games no matter what. So no fair weather fans out there, everybody stay behind your Tar Heels, and let's pray for the best. Let's pray for a healthy remainder of the season, no more guys going down, because that's going to be key at this point for this team to establish the identity that they need to establish, get focused on the court, and perform and execute, because they need to show up. They need to show all of us that they care and that they have the effort that they're going to put into every game for 40 minutes. So let's do this, Tar Heels. You can do it. Here we go, everybody. Let's move into the rest of the ACC with confidence, and I look forward to talking to everybody again in a couple weeks. Follow me at Twitter. I'm at Yogi Gill. Thanks, everybody. I look forward to hearing anything that you have comment-wise on YouTube, and until then, go Heels.